Alright, so discussing head hopping. So whenever we are writing a scene, we have to make sure that we stay in the same point of view or the same POV. You only have two options. You can have first person POV, which is a story written from the character's point of view using words like I, me, we, etc. Or you can have third person limited, which is words like he, she, his, her, names, that sort of thing. There are more POVs than just those two, but those are the two that we're going to focus on for this unit. If the protagonist, who is typically your POV character, cannot possibly know something without being psychic or some in other way, shape, or form magical, and that's not a power that we've already said that they had somewhere else in the story, then the reader should not know it either. So, for example, if we're talking about someone else's emotions or their inner thoughts, that's something that the protagonist or your POV character can't know for sure without the actual ability to climb inside their head and figure out what's going on. So we have to be able to imply those things by using things like body language, facial expressions, tone of voice. All of those details tell us about that without our protagonist magically becoming psychic. So let's look at an example scene, how we identify it and how we fix it. So here's a really short little blurb. Susan slumped back in her chair. Math class was so boring. Hey, Liz, she whispered. What'd you do last night? Liz thought Susan was annoying. She was worried about the tests next week and wanted to pay attention to the teacher. Hush, she said, frowning. So this scene has quite a bit of head hopping in the second paragraph. If Susan is our protagonist, then, for example, how in the world is she supposed to know that Liz thinks Susan is annoying? Susan can't climb into Liz's head and read that in there. So the only way that she could know that Liz thinks that is if we give her clues with things like body language, facial expression, etc. So we're going to change this and use what kind of tone of voice, body language would go along with someone being annoyed. So the one that I picked was Liz sighed. Oh, she's annoyed, she just sighs. Now, Susan doesn't have to be psychic to know that Liz is possibly annoyed with her, because Liz has communicated that through the use of her sigh. The next sentence is also head hopping. So there's no way that Susan could know that Liz is worried about the test next week and wants to pay attention to the teacher without Liz actually saying so. Again, we're going to think about things like tone of voice. We can actually say things. There's no harm in giving out information in dialogue. Facial expressions, things like that, in order to convey the same information without Susan having to be psychic. So I split this up into two sentences for ease. So Liz looking back at the teacher. Okay, that's a fairly clear body language sign saying, I'm going to be paying attention to this person instead of you. And then in order to pass on that information about the test, the easiest way to do something really specific like that is generally in dialogue. So I gave her another line to say. So looking back at the teacher and specifically stating, I want to pass this test. The reader and Susan both get the same amount of information without having to worry about any head hopping or magical psychic abilities.